All right, everybody, welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. I'm going to be hosting an event tonight where we're going to have the ultimate Four Roses tasting. We're going to be running through literally their entire product portfolio from the items that they currently offer, as well as some things that are long gone, barrel picks, even things that are export only. Should be a fun event. And of course, Four Roses has a great history. We may be joined by Jason Brauner and Jim Rutledge. They're having obviously some technical difficulties right now. So if we can bring them in a little bit, we will. Hopefully, if nothing else, we can get them towards the end for a Q&A session. Obviously, Four Roses has a great story. Jim Rutledge is such an important part of that. He's such an important part of bourbon history as well. I mean, literally, if you look at the moments in time, the things that saved bourbon when it was continuing to go downhill, there's a couple different things. The big Maker's Mark thing where they ran the article in the Wall Street Journal, that certainly helped. Booker going out on the road, I think that was a huge thing to kind of get the public's attention after being away from bourbon for many years. But then I would say the third thing is the rise of Four Roses. The fact that it was really literally nearly left for dead. And Jim Rutledge took it upon himself, made it his personal mission to bring Four Roses back, I think is one of those huge moments in time that really started to sway things in the eyes of the public. And he had such an important role in that. And that's why I hope we get that opportunity to it. Like I said, if nothing else, bring him in during the Q&A part, because literally it was a personal passion of his to be able to do that and bring Four Roses back. And it's something he pushed for a long time. Some of the things that allowed him to do that, he got a little sneaky with them, and so it's a pretty exciting story for sure. So I'm going to mute those guys right now. Hopefully, as they try to get it back together here, we'll get them back in. But with Four Roses coming back, and they've literally come all the way back to now, like I said, where you couldn't even buy it in the U.S. to being one of the top bourbon distilleries in the U.S., award-winning products that we look forward to. We're going to try their entire portfolio, which is 4 different offerings, their regular offerings. And what's interesting about that is every single one of them is good in their own way, depending, they vary by proof and age and those type of things, but they're all unique and all very good things for sure. Like I said, the guys they're coming in and off there, but hopefully we'll be able to hear them in a second here. We're going to start out our evening with the basics. So the first one that we're going to be trying is the Four Roses, what is normally been known as the yellow label. The label does look like this now. It's no longer that bright yellow label we're used to. They just like to call it Four Roses. When you go to Four Roses, that's what they call it. For us, consumers, people have been drinking it forever, it's hard to call it anything but Four Roses. What's unique about this, it's an 80 proof bourbon, but what's unique about it, what I like about it, is a high rye. Four Roses is a high rye bourbon, and it does hold up in cocktails even at 80 proof, which is good. 80 proof, I always say, is a tough bourbon number for me, but I think that it holds up pretty well. So we're gonna give this thing a taste. It is, what's unique about this one too is it's made up of a combination of all 10 Four Roses recipes. One of the things that makes Four Roses unique is they use 10 different yeast strains, which means that there are 10 different recipes when it comes to Four Roses. And this is a mixture of all 10. So let's pour this one, and then we'll talk about what we're getting on the nose and on the taste. Jim, I see you with us. Can you hear us? Let's talk a little bit about.
Can you hear me, Steve?
Yes, I can hear you. We're trying the what was known as the yellow label for many years.
Jason would.
Jason's going to get somebody to work on it. Okay. Well, I'll put you on mute for right now, Jim, and then we'll bring you back in a little bit. Okay.
Be back in just a bit.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the Four Roses, the 80 proof, the former yellow label. On the nose, what are we getting as we taste through this one? On the nose, Lifesaver cherries. I think that's pretty good. I think that's accurate. Buttery. These are good things that are coming in for an 80 proof bourbon. It's not bad. Very cheap. You're talking about sub $20. I used to have a little store around that I used to shop. It used to have it for $12.99 forever. they finally caught on that they were a little underpriced and raised it. But that's where I'd always get my Four Roses 80 proof at. Let's give this a try. I mean, you certainly catch a lot of spice with this one as you drink it, and it sticks with you. Again, for an 80 proof, that can be the most challenging proof when it comes to bourbon. And this one does have a finish, which not all 80 proof bourbons have a finish. This one does have one. It's not lingering and lasts forever, but again, it's certainly the spice contributes to that, and it does give you a nice general warmth as you taste it. On the flavor notes, what are you guys getting on that? I mean, I would say, besides the pepper, I mean, you certainly get kind of black pepper. There you go. Same thing Paul said. You certainly get that. But there's that rye bread taste. So there is from the bakery aisle, you get that taste that goes along with it as well. Anything else anybody's getting? Anything unusual? Sweet corn. Okay. That's good. A little bit different too. I like that. And you definitely get oak to it. A little bit of a drying sensation in the mouth too. It's a little bit drying to the palate.
And that peppery finish just surrounds the tongue.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
It is dry. You do get a dryness with it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, again, I think a dryness is an unusual thing to call with an 80 proof. That's usually associated with something higher on the proof spectrum. Mr. Bill says buttery popcorn with pepper. I'd say that's a pretty darn accurate description. That's a good one, Bill. Nice work there. Jason and Jim are back.
All right, Steve, I think we got all the glitches worked out. We've got the
mic. Yeah, you sound great.
Right, for now, sorry. Good. I know a guy that gave me a microphone.
I'm so glad to have you guys here. Yes, I set Jason up, so he's got the technology to succeed there. So good. You guys do sound great. Glad you're here. Again, sorry for the audience it's just technology. When it works, gosh, it's just your best friend. When it doesn't, it's a pain. So again, just want to introduce my co-host, Jason Brauner, obviously of Bourbons Bistro, Jim Rutledge, the legend himself, Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Famer, and joining us today. So guys, how's it going?
We hope.
That's good.
I got
Jim,
the Bourbons Bistro, and we're just having some problems with the two laptops sitting side by side. I've got all my sound off, got it muted, and we're working through sound on Jason. So
okay,
we hope this works.
You sound good now. You're not breaking up. You sound solid. So Jim, and we'll talk a little bit. We're going to do some Q&A at the end, and we'll talk a little bit about your career as we wrap up here. But I want to specifically talk about the first one that we're trying, and that's the 80 proof, what you're probably used to calling the yellow label. I know we as fans always called it that. They don't go by that anymore at Four Roses. But what are your thoughts on the 80 proof?
I just picked it up, smelled it, just tasted a little bit. It's I can tell it's quite a bit younger. It was always target age of 5 years. It could go down to 4 something, but we always had a little over 6 years in the bottom. But I can tell this is quite a bit younger. This is probably less than 5 years age right now. You can tell about it. It's the aroma. It's a little bit harsher than what I'm used to with this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nobody better at Jim Rutledge than having an older barrel that tastes really good. I mean, in terms of picking out barrels and things like that, Jim is certainly one of the best. So what he's saying certainly carries a lot of credence, So, and this, what makes this one unique, Jim, is it is a combo of all 10 recipes, correct?
That's right. It's that goes back in the Seagram years when before anybody ever thought about a single barrel small batch. This goes all the way back to the 40s when Seagram started the 10 recipes, the 5 mash bills in combination with 2 yeast. And it was done for one purpose, and that was to achieve consistency. And we'd start out with a target formula of the 10 recipes. And when we were ready for a bottling run, then we would start off with that target. Then we would tweak that formula, a little more one recipe, a little less of another. And sometimes we would only use 8 or 9. But the combination, we try to get as close to the standard as possible. And that was the whole reason. We always considered quality is consistency and conformance to our standards. And that's why the 10 recipes were generated. I always said, that was not a big deal because no 2 bourbons are ever alike from bottling run to bottling run. And the challenge is that even though maybe the people in quality that are smelling and tasting can see a difference, but the challenge and the idea was that the consumers have a very, very difficult time, that people aren't used to analyzing the sample. So, but there's always differences, and the big advantage of the 10 recipes, to me, actually materialized when single barrels were started, small batch bourbons, and everything Four Roses did was a combination of those 10. And like the single barrel was the OBSV, the small batch was 4 of the recipes, the yellow label was 10 of the recipes, all the small batch special selects releases every year were always different, and nothing was ever the same. And that was the big advantage of these 10 recipes.
So, and Jim, was it your job as the master distiller when you're batching these 10 different recipes? Was it your job to figure out what goes in there? Are you tasting it as it's getting batched to determine if you need anything else in there? Because you said it didn't even necessarily always have all 10. Who was doing that?
Well, our quality department director of quality, Brent Elliott, now is the distiller. He's also still in charge of quality. But they would set them up and acquire all the samples that we needed, and then we would have a panel. There was usually 5 or 6 of us always on the panel, and together we would have a conformance as to which we thought was the most consistent to the standard that we had.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Let's move on to and we can come back to those or whatever we like, obviously. Let's move on to the small batch. And Jim, when you were bringing Four Roses back, did you initially just have one product? And if so, what was it closest to when we talk about these 4 products that they have today? Was it kind of like just a batch like what is now Four Roses Yellow Label? Was that the first item, or did you have more than one item when you got this thing rolling?
Now I'm not hearing you very well. Prior to the single barrel small batch you're talking about, did we just have the one?
Yes.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me,
When Four Roses first started coming back, did you just have one item? Yeah. I can hear you.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
It was, we started calling it Yellow Label to distinguish between small batch, single barrel, but it was just called Four Roses Bourbon, and that's all we had. And
Okay.
from the late 50s, it had only been marketed in Europe and Japan. It was a top-selling bourbon in Japan most years, and it was a top-selling bourbon in most European countries. But it had disappeared from the U.S. In the late 50s. And subsequent to the repeal of Prohibition, Four Roses had been the #1 selling bourbon in the U.S. up until a decision was made to pull it off the market. We had 5 bourbons. Four Roses was the only one that really had any recognition, and those were kept. But back in all those years, the bourbon as a category was considered bottom shelf, while the blended whiskeys like Crown Royal, Seagram 7, Canadian Club were the top shelf brands. So Seagram was primarily a blended whiskey company, and they pulled the top selling bourbon off the market. So the focus was again only on the mainly on the blended whiskeys. Some of the other bourbons we have, like Henry McKenna, the Antique Series, Benchmark, what am I forgetting?
Mhm. So what
I'm
should we
forgetting some of
anticipate?
them. Eagle Rare was another, and
Oh, yeah.
Eagle Rare, now Buffalo Trace. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, what should we anticipate as we're getting ready to drink the small batch here?
What was primarily, it was K and O yeast. K yeast was dominating, so there's spiciness there. The O yeast is more of a heavy fruity flavors. The B mash bill, and not my age, I always tell everybody my short-term memory recall has a range of 14 seconds to 14 hours.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not as up to this as I used to be, but I think the B mash bill with the heavier rye was about 60% of the recipe, and the E mash bill 40%.
Okay.
But spiciness, I like the single barrel generally, but Four Roses was very different. All the tastings I ever did, it was amazing. You couldn't, when consumers come up and try them for the first time, it was hard to believe that they're totally different, small batch versus single barrel. And the recipe we used for the 100 proof single barrel, and after 49 years, I can't stop saying we, but the recipe that's used
Right.
for the single barrel is not one of the four in small batch.
Yeah. Just for the audience, again, you got the chat function. Just tell us what you're getting on the taste on this one. As Jim mentioned, fruity is definitely comes through on the taste as well.
Some of the spices, perhaps.
But again, kind of like a peppered fruit. It's kind of got definitely got the spice to it for sure.
Yeah, I'm picking up maybe some nutmeg, hint of cinnamon.
Yeah, cinnamon and oak. We got Honeycrisp apple, sweet and spicy, more of a presence.
You all speak up too, because everybody there, when you're tasting it, if you see something, please, everybody contribute, because we all see things differently, and everybody's right. No one's wrong at a tasting.
A lot of cinnamon on the finish,
Yeah.
on the top of the tongue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Honeycrisp apple. Anything else anybody wants to weigh in with? And again, you can take your mic off if you like. Feel free to jump in and share with the team here. Again, no wrong answers.
Jason had to leave again for a minute. He's still trying to. I think we're pretty good right now. He's still doing something to try to make it a little better.
Yeah.
It's working well.
You sound pretty good.
The coating on a candy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting some of that.
On the small batch.
Okay. Candy apple coating. Yeah. But you've seen, someone said Sonia said pepper caramel. I think that's right, because it combines the sweet caramel that you get, and there's definitely, it continues to have the spicy pepper to it too. More black pepper, Mr. Bill.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the caramel also.
Yeah.
Especially No, not that one. It's this right here.
Oh, okay.
43%. Jason, I'm sorry. Jason's just getting set
Patrick was
his,
saying a mild licorice taste for him. What else?
Yeah.
Anything else? Taste on this one? Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about the small batch? Obviously, what the regular Four Roses lineup. Tell us a little bit about the bar and what are the most popular ones at the bar from the regular lineup.
I love to start people on the, like, you know, you get people that come in from all over and never really got into bourbon or just want to get into it. So what I do is I'll start them on the yellow labels, one of my favorite starters because it's 80 proof. You know, it's real light on the palate. And even so, if they're real beginners, I'll put a little ginger in it, just splash the ginger on top of it. And that kind of eases them into the bourbon world as far as I'm concerned. But then I love if they've drank bourbon and don't really know what they're looking for, I always recommend the small batch because it's 90 proof. And for me, it's a little more fruity. Don't you think, Jim? I get a little bit more lighter and fruity tones to the small batch as opposed to, you know, the heavier kind of baking spices, you know, real thick vanillins. And I just get a little lighter tone to the small batch.
Yeah, and there's definitely more complexity to the small batch for sure. You definitely got more layers of flavor
definitely
there.
with the
Yeah.
4 rest. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
So, and then Jason, do you move them? Do you graduate them to the the single barrel, and then does the select play into this as well?
Like,
The new kid on the block.
yeah, I mean, you just kind of, I think it's a natural progression to go from yellow label to small batch to single barrel, and then you start getting into the selects. You know, they can be up there and proof some of them, and you know, to me, it's a natural progression.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we've got a real treat tonight. We're gonna end our tasting with single barrel, and it's a pretty special one, the one that celebrated the 15th anniversary of Bourbons Bistro, which in celebration in number, it didn't end up being a great live celebration because it happened right at the heart of COVID last year. So kind of anticlimactic 15 years put into this. And yeah, you didn't get to have a big party for it, which is unfortunate, but we have the bourbon tonight and we'll get to be drinking that a little bit later, right?
Yeah, we'll be doing that. That was I guess that was the last pickup done at Four Roses. Did I do one after that? I think that was the last one.
That's the last one you've done?
Yeah, that was my 25th barrel
25th
that
barrel.
I done with Four Roses. Because you know, man, we did 25.
You told me that
barrels.
recently. Yeah.
25 barrels. Yeah. Okay. Let's try a single barrel. The single barrel from Four Roses. Again, the one that's part of the regular product lineup. So comes in a bottle, looks like this, 100 proof. Let's try that. Okay, everybody, ask you guys what you're getting on the nose there.
Up next? Eddie's not alive.
This one's getting a little bit more on the savory side as opposed to the ones a little bit fruitier there. Maple syrup. Uh-huh. Toasted marshmallow. I like that.
You know, the single barrel is what
right, what about
started Four Roses back in the US. We introduced single barrel in September 2004 at the Bourbon Festival. The Singer went out of business at the end of 2001, and Karen Brewery purchased Four Roses. And all we have was the Four Roses bourbon, yellow label. And that was so confusing because it'd been off the market for about 45 years or so. And all people remembered was the blended whiskey that Seagram had with our name on the bottle, but it had nothing to do with Kentucky. It was made in Indiana and Maryland distilleries. And it had a horrible reputation of a cheap, inexpensive rot gut whiskey. And that's why for years I tried to get Seagram to bring Four Roses Bourbon back. I knew what we could put in bottles, but they wouldn't do it. We had debates all the time. It never ended. And they would tell me, Jim, you're one person. We have 200, I think it was 13 brands in the market of different type whiskeys. And we appreciate how passionate and you are about your brand, but we're not going to spend the millions of dollars it would take to change that image. He said, no matter, people, 40 years ago or so, they made a mistake, but we can't, we're not going to spend the millions it would take to correct the mistake. And I finally got it listed in Kentucky in 1996, and we were not doing much, but I've told that story, explained the difference of the blended whiskey and the bourbon thousands of times. I never got tired of it. But we really didn't start trying to market it until we introduced a single barrel. We had to come up with something that was premium, totally different bottle, 100 proof, one of the recipes. But that's what got it. Four Roses started back in the U.S. with the introduction in September 2004 of the single barrel bourbon.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. And in terms of getting it into the U.S., I know that there was a little trickery involved. If you don't mind, tell us the story about how you were able to. Again, Kieran didn't want to sell it in the U.S., but you convinced them that they had to carry it in the U.S.
Well, they'd spent a week at Four Roses after they purchased. It was in January 2002, and I mean it was days of questions. They were asking me questions about everything. They'd never been in the bourbon business, and they're a beer company. But I guess the last day there, and they said, Jim Son, do you have questions of us? And I said, well, I explained that Seagram had a blended whiskey in the market that had our name on the bottle, but it wasn't bourbon. And I didn't tell them the reputation it had, but I said, are you willing to take that off the market and bring our bourbon back? And they said, yes, we will. And but it was something they had no idea the challenges that we were faced. We got into that later once they agreed, but it was years later that one of the Kieran people told me, he said, you could have anything you asked that they were going to say yes to, because they were afraid that I was going to leave. And I always tell them, if I'd have known that, I might still be there because I'd been making a lot more money. Double my salary or something. But that's how we got started back. They agreed immediately. That first week they were over here that they would bring it back to the U.S. And once CEO got over here, of Four Roses that had been signed by Kieran, and we came up with just he and I at first. And we decided the best way to go was come up with something unique and different. We looked at the bottle that was Seagram had in the European market. It was different shape from most bourbon bottles. Had a black label on it. That we had several models, different bottles that were accepted. We accepted something that square shaped bottle because it was a little bit more masculine, I guess, and that's the reason it was chosen. We went through a lot of different bottles, a lot of different labels, and that's the one that was chosen. It's changed a few times since we started, but not very much. It's just minor change.
Gotcha. On the taste on this one, and everybody, again, you can open up your mic if you like, if you want to share any tasting notes or anything like that. We got some cool nosing notes here, some light vanilla.
Well, we're still having little technical problems here. We're not here.
Can't hear me? Okay. Yeah. So just talking about tasting notes now. So what do you guys get when you taste the single barrel? The audience, feel free to weigh in too.
Sorry, I'm it's happening because of shaking here. We're sitting outside. It's about 48 degrees right now. It's chilly.
Jason, we'll let you come inside. What's going on there? So on the taste, what are you guys getting? I feel like somebody said toasted marshmallow on the nose. I think you get some of that on the taste for sure. What else? What else do we get besides creme brulee, cinnamon?
Yeah, we were gonna say burnt marshmallow, so that'll go.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too.
Little bit of like a little dark stone fruit.
Dark stone fruit. Yeah, I see some cinnamon and dark stone fruit.
Yeah. Just say no. I get a little bit of stone fruit.
Mm-hmm. So stone fruit. Complexity, layers of light cinnamon, sweet moss, custardy mouthfeel. Yeah, mouthfeel's great on this one.
Yeah, it's got a great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all over. I mean, real viscous, kind of coats your mouth. I mean, just a all around great product.
Yeah.
Definitely been
Yeah.
one of my favorites throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice warm hug gives you for sure. And again, the finish has gotten better as we've progressed up, and it's the best here. Pound for
so
pound, one of the best readily available bourbons. What did you say, Jason?
Especially tasting those all three side by side, you can tell, you can tell how it progresses to me. I mean, I love to do it, and I'll go back and, because your first taste of whiskey is going to be a little bit hotter anyway. So I think once you move up the line and you get to the single barrel, now go back and taste the yellow label. And it's like, it really sees what you're getting. I mean, I think.
All right, take them up on that, folks.
Each expression is something different, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the yellow label has definitely either evolved a little bit or I've evolved a little bit as we've gone through our first three here. So definitely a difference there. Okay. The next one to try is the small batch select. And Jim, obviously this is a new product. This was came out after you had already left the company. And the highest proof of the regular offerings, though, again, just their regular on-shelf items. So this one comes in at 108. And it'd be good to ask you about this one again, just in terms of, on the taste and that here. So again, it's not a product that you were involved in, developing, but just to get your kind of thoughts on this one as we nose it. I mean, definitely fruity. Cherry flavor pops on the Four Roses after you go back to it. Yeah.
The
What do you guys
nose,
think on the nose?
The nose
on
is
this
not,
one, on the small batch slick.
the nose is
What'd you
not,
say, Fred?
no, the nose is not as peppery as the others, but it's really well balanced, amazingly well balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
I think you definitely get the alcohol on the nose a little bit more as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cinnamon too, definitely cinnamon.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, you don't get that?
I haven't gotten it yet on the nose.
108.
What did Jim say on the nose?
Cinnamon?
Cinnamon, yeah. Cinnamon coated graham crackers, says Patrick. Yep. Caramel starts to creep in from Paul. Apple is spot on too. Kind of a caramel apple. Yeah. All right, let's taste this one.
I can definitely get the cherry on the front of that, right on the front of my palate. It seems to pop a little more, like you said, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Really comes to the foreground, me more so than the other small batch.
Yeah.
I like this a lot. This is the first time I've tasted it. I don't know what recipes are in this. I don't know if anybody else does.
Yeah. I tell you, well, I don't think the bottle yields any
I think there's
any
six,
secrets here.
I think there's 6 recipes in it. It's either 4.
Oh
or-
yeah.
Yeah.
It does say 6. I've got them for you too. It's OBSV, OBSK, OBSF, OESV, OESK, and OESF. So 6 of the recipes. They even list the tasting notes associated with each one. So you're talking about pear, apricot, creamy, rich spiciness, mint, fruit, spicy, delicate fruit, fresh and creamy, spicy, and mint, fruity. So those are the 6 recipes and the flavors supposedly that each brings to the table. Sonia said sassafras. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's sassafras too. That
Yeah, I think that there's something there to that. Sonia said that, and I think that's that little bit of a zing that's a little bit different tasting. I think that's a good flavor note to tie to that one.
feels it.
Mm-hmm. What else do you guys get on this one? The Robinsons? What are you guys thinking?
I know it's got a peppery mouthfeel that's really good.
Yes. Yeah, and we've seen that on all 4 offerings. Obviously, pepper is one that's been tied.
Yeah.
We've seen that notes on all of them, and
Yeah, and that
it
sassafras,
definitely.
yeah, once somebody said the sassafras, you do just the tiniest hint of that kind of on the finish. Yeah.
Yeah, but it remains, fruity. Oh, someone said red hot's candy, which makes sense when you're talking about kind of cinnamon and spicy. That's a good one.
Did anybody get like a drying effect, almost like not a pucker effect, but something like pulling it in?
Like a pucker effect, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it's not a sour. It's not like a sour, but maybe that's the mint out of that one yeast strain.
That's really.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of tannins, maybe, Tim.
What I was thinking with this one is almost white pepper.
White pepper. Okay.
Almost. I mean, I was kind of getting a little bit of white pepper out of it, which is,
Yeah.
might be splitting hairs there. But
No, I go with that.
so
And
maybe
I've had
that's,
all these, but again, side by side makes it a little bit different. Yeah. What about you, Randy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really smooth. This is my favorite so far.
Okay, very good.
So far, yeah.
Steve and
this is
Carrie, we haven't heard
probably
from you two.
top dog.
Yeah. Justine and Carrie, what do you guys think?
I kind of get a little clove.
Little clove, okay.
What I'm picking up, kind of clove or like probably pepper, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all there. That's the great thing. This is a very layers of flavor bourbon for sure. Lots of different tastes. And that's why we love bourbon. It has all the different, it's not a one note whiskey by any means. Okay. Let's move on to the next one, which is the super premium. Jim, do you know anything about this? This is an export only to Japan. 86 proof. Is this something that, when was this introduced? Do you know?
But I think it was 1992. It was 91 or 92. And back then, it was pretty old. It was 20% of the barrels had to be a minimum of 8 years old, which was not very common back in those years. And it's all K yeast. And I can't remember K yeast. And I don't remember the E. Let's see. And the mash bill. I'm sorry. I don't remember the mash bill percentage. It's okay. 86 proof, minimum 20% 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Back then it was.
Yeah. Very elegant looking bottle. All no paper label at all other than scan code on the back. Rest of it. And this is a metal, or yeah, it's maybe. Yeah, seems like it's metal. And the rest is all clear. So interesting look to it for sure. This one's 86 proof. What do you guys think of this one on the nose?
I tried to get Four Roses Karen to bring this back into the U.S. and obviously I wasn't successful.
Yeah, why would they make something just not for the U.S. market, Jim? What was the pushback from that?
Yeah, that went back to Japan. I think Four Roses was outside of Japan, and they also had the in Japan only as well. But that's because that was the top market. We were only in, again, Europe and Japan, and the yellow label was the regular Four Roses bourbon, and they were just trying to expand the markets to others. 86 proof. Both of those were 86 proof. Black label, final bourbon. Super premium.
Gotcha. And on the nose, it is different than, again, anything that we've nosed so far.
Did you say this was 8 year usually?
20%.
20%. Okay, I was going to say,
20%.
to me, obviously, what we're coming off of is the higher proof one, but this just seemed a little bit thinner to me, just kind of throughout. Just it almost real thin on the palate. Didn't have a lot of, I didn't think it had a whole lot of depth to it. A lot of it hit up front, really didn't. I don't think it completely finished all the way back.
So some of the nosing notes are interesting. Yeah, short finish.
Yeah.
On the nosing notes, you read out there, its nose is kind of like a Japanese whiskey. Interesting. Much less pepper on the nose. Cherry blossoms in harmony from Tim, agreeing with the Robinsons there. Much lighter on the, yeah, it is lighter. Cherry taffy someone said. So on the taste, you heard a little bit from Jason and Jim there. I didn't try it yet, so let's see what we got here.
This has less pepper to me than any of the others so far.
Mm-hmm.
Very light.
So this is 86 proof. It is very light. It tastes like it's the lightest proof of the night, but it is not. We had the yellow label is 80 proof. Paul is saying butterscotch. That's always good. But much less complex than the other things that we've tried tonight. And it has, the mouthfeel is definitely a more watery mouthfeel. We talked about some of them coating the palate, the viscous feel. This is not that.
I'm just guessing. I don't think it has the as old it used to be. We had used to talk about 20% 8-year-old, but we were size 10 and 12-year-old in there. That didn't mean it was 8 years old. It was a minimum of 8 years old. I don't think it's the age it used to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right.
I'm getting a varnished wood taste to it. Weird.
I don't think that's ever desired. So yeah. Varnished wood is not anything they're aiming for.
That sounds like Fred. Is that Fred saying that?
That's Fred. Yeah, that's Fred.
I thought I recognized your voice. How often do you taste varnished wood?
Yeah, this one, it's a little bit of a disappointment, especially because it's so hard to get. My daughter got this. She went to Japan, and she's the global traveler in the family. And she picked me up a bottle of this. Light muskiness on the nose. Yeah. Very
Lighter
dry.
body than it
Yeah.
used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a standout by any means. We don't have to be jealous of not being able to get this one in the US.
Oh.
It's not horrible.
I don't think it's nearly what it used to be.
Yeah. But it's just not a standout. You want it to be really cool because it looks great and it's hard to get. You just want it to be something very special, and it just doesn't quite live up to that. All right, Jim, the next one we've got, tell me a little bit about this. So this is for Roses Bourbon. This is from the 1980s, and this is actually brought back from Europe. So this is a product that was available in Europe, but it is 6-year-old bourbon. It says 6-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So tell us a little bit about this.
Actually,
Again, this was a time we couldn't buy this in the US. So tell us about it.
Yeah, this was probably up until Karen took over. You couldn't buy any of this really. But anyway, the 86 proof was sold in Japan and France only. The rest of Europe was 80 proof. I was in New York. I was just taking on, in addition to what I had been doing, taking on the long range planning in '88, and the guy that was retiring when I did the first plan, I said, "What in the world's going on? What did I do wrong? I'm coming up about 2 million plus gallons short of what we need." And he said, "Well, I've been telling everybody the last couple of years, nobody believes me, so I just take it." And I said, "Good Lord." Took it over at the time in '88, the Japanese market had just shot through the roof. From about 68 through '88, our industry was declining every year. And in '88, we had to buy some bourbon from other distilleries, and we used that in the blends, about 2%. But like 7 with the bourbon, we took and make up the shortages. And I was the one that went to international vice presidents and director, reduced fence and I changed it, got them to change everything to make it all the same, where we didn't have different blend formulas.
Right.
Now we're back at.
What did we cut out totally?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys cut out.
Where did I?
You were telling us about how you got it to be just one blend formula. So.
But anyway, the industry was so short because we always in long range planning, you know, we had this downward trend for 20 years. And back in the early 80s, when we were planning for the late 80s, so the industry was all caught with our pants down, but Four Roses was hurt more than anyone because that was our #1 market for Four Roses Bourbon. So anyway, we changed, that's when we changed it to 80 proof. If it had only been this, what you're seeing right here now was only in France, Japan.
Okay.
Not that that means anything. That's just a little bit of history on it.
No, that's cool. I had no idea. So that's neat. Kerosene on the nose from Randy. Again, not a desired nosing. Anything else on the nose?
I get that too when you said that. Like, it just jumps right out the first thing you think of.
Kerosene. Little Sharpie marker, maybe. Sharpie marker. Ethyl acetate, yeah. Not promising, but what the heck? Let's give it a try. Cheers, gang. Some old 80s Four Roses. Let's see what we got here.
Ooh. What do you think?
Dry erase marker.
On the palate of the finish.
That's a tough one.
Greenwood. Is it? New wood.
Yeah.
Fresh cut wood.
On the finish, it's not nice.
That's a little tough, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah. The back of it, yeah, it tastes like green wood.
Green wood,
You know,
yeah.
I've once we got Yellow Label back in the US and I got back out of New York back to Four Roses and you know, that was our brand and we were the one that started choosing and selecting the as I went through earlier the process of you know, maybe 15 or 20 samples trying to hit that standard. Now, before we started doing that, it was the blending was done at Seagram's headquarters in LaSalle, which is a suburb of Montreal, and they were doing all the blends, all the bourbons for all the Seagram distilleries. And this is just, you know, one. And their focus wasn't on as dedicated and as passionate as what we did once we got. I've never tasted any of the Four Roses prior to us having it as our own brand, and that's the only thing we had to market. That's the only thing we had to focus on. So I think everything subsequent to, I hate to say it, but Seagram going out of business, and we had Four Roses back in the US. None of it was as good as the Yellow Label we've had since 2002.
Mm-hmm.
We took more pride in it and interest in it than someone who was maybe doing 100 or 200 blends.
Yeah. I mean, the notes coming in on the taste are not promising here. Rubber tire, linseed oil, patchouli, oh, marzipan. Fred Minnick is here.
Light a fire with it.
You can light a fire with this. Yes. Yes. Burnt rubber bands. Yeah. I think people like this one. That's good. It sounds pretty positive. A little complexity. No.
Well, I'm glad you brought this in so you can see the difference once we started on our own versus when we were one of so many brands Seagram had, 200 over 200 brands, and the pride we took in it, we knew what we could. I can't explain why it tastes like this. I don't know.
Yeah. This needed a
Someone
little
made a mistake.
TLC. Yeah. Gosh. I'm trying what, no, I'm done with that one. Done with it.
Put enough time on this.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a water cleanse here. Let's start anew here, right? That's nasty. Jeez. This happens. We've done enough of these where we're trying old whiskey and things like that. And a lot of times you hit a home run and you're just amazed at what you get. And then sometimes we've had them like that. So, all right. The next one's a special one. It's a limited edition small batch. Comes out once a year, sometimes more than once a year, I guess. The special year, like when they did the Al Young, they had 2 in 1 year. But it's the 130th anniversary. So, Jim, you weren't involved when they released this, but this is whiskey that you made, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Steve. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, so we're moving on to the 130th, the limited edition that gets released every year, and this one happens to celebrate the 130th anniversary of Four Roses.
Yeah.
This was not one that was released while you worked there, but this is whiskey that you made, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. The difference all the way through these, they're all younger than, but I know they've had an inventory issue, and when we started out, I remember I debated multiple times every year, and every year we're not putting enough barrels away. And the Japanese philosophy, last minute, I said, you can't make a 6-year-old bourbon at the last minute. But like the first CEO, he would, we were brand new in the US, and he plateaued. He showed growth for the first 4 or 5 years. I think it was the 5th year he plateaued it at 10,000 cases a year. The second CEO went up to 25,000 after about 5 years, and he plateaued it. I said, if you make a mistake, you want to make a mistake with too much in inventory because you can cut back your production. But if we come up short, and they never could get that. And last year, from what my understanding is, now remember they were plateauing at back in 2015 at 25,000 cases. So you're putting it away for now, or a 6-year-old this year. And last year, I understand that their sales were in the U.S. were around 570,000 or 575 9-liter cases.
Wow.
So that's why there's been a shortage issue, and everything's gotten younger.
Yeah.
And that's happened to the entire industry. It's not just Four Roses, but I think it's more dramatic with Four Roses. But that's happened with every distillery because of the dramatic growth of bourbon in the last few years.
Yeah. So we're hearing a cherry wood, sweet barbecue, cedar on the nose, butterscotch, banana bread. I don't know. I think there's maybe some peanut brittle there too. I mean, anybody with me? Anybody? Cherry wood. Sweet barbecue. Yeah. I do get a little barbecue on the nose for sure.
To me, it seems a little more creamy.
Creamy. Yeah, let's give it a taste and see where we're at taste wise.
I think this is the best one so far.
Yeah.
This is the best one so far.
I agree. That is really good. Creme brulee, spot on. Yeah, that's dessert in a glass there.
Oh, amen to that. Great mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a real creamy mouthfeel, and I think to the just like almost a hint of the butterscotch, like a Werther's type thing. It gives you that kind of not really syrupy feel, but that light coffee feel kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, that is excellent.
Mhm.
I like what's going on there.
Hey, Steve, is this one recipe?
Well, I don't know if it says anything on there or not.
Probably not.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Doesn't say. Jim, do you traditionally know what they do with this recipe wise? The limited edition that they do each year?
So do you know what they do with the recipe with this? Do they do anything traditional with the anniversary?
With the recipes and that, is it more than one recipe typically, or?
It's a small batch, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how many
Okay.
recipes, but generally start off with something on all the limited editions. We used to try to make it everything above a minimum of 10 years age. I doubt that's being done. Oh, I'm sure it's not being done now. But and then we start surveying everything that's put away about 3.5 years age, and survey sampling every batch is put away. When we come across some batches that are improving with age and still seem to have a long way to go, then we put a hold on it. And we never fill a barrel. We say we're going to age this 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. They have to earn their way into the older categories, because everybody out there that knows me knows, I'm not a great fan of aged bourbon. Just because it's older doesn't make it better. But when you find bourbons that's really good and old, it's the best. But age in itself doesn't make it better. But so we carefully select the ones, put a hold on it, don't use for anything, keep a hold on it. Then we might get to the point when it gets a little age on it of instead of every year analyzing it, going through organoleptic analysis, maybe do it 2 years, twice a year, maybe 3 years once it gets older, and trying to catch it at their peak of performance. So that's the process we go through.
Very cool.
And
Yes.
we will check small batches. I don't think I've ever seen a small batch with less than or fewer than 4 of the recipes in it. I don't know what this has, but that's not on the label, is it?
It is not, but we had Paul actually Google it for us. So it's a blend of 10-year-old OBSV, 13-year-old OBSF, 14-year-old OESV, and 16-year-old OESK. So it's a blend of four different ages. So that's what it is. But yeah,
This is
it's
really
fantastic.
good.
Yeah. Finish is great. I mean, that's as well-rounded as, perfect of a dram as you can get right there. That's really good. Makes up for the one that we just had, I think. The old 80s. That's excellent. All right. Our last one of the night, Jason, we're going to have you take the lead on this one, because this is the barrel that you picked, the 25th barrel that you ever bought from Four Roses, the one that you bought to celebrate the 15th anniversary of your restaurant and bar. Tell us a little bit about this pick and what we should be getting with this one.
When I found out it was my 25th barrel pick, I mean, it was just out of the blue. I had asked Mandy, because I had no clue how many barrels I had done, and she went and did her research while we were picking this one. And, she came back and said it's the 25th barrel, and I was like, wow, that's unbelievable. Plus, it's going into our 15-year anniversary barrel, and we wanted to celebrate that. So to me, it's just really special. Jim knows that I always used to be an OESK fan, and I don't know whether my palate has changed or whether they did something whether something, slightly changed at the distillery, but if you see this was what OESB or something, we kind of got away from the ESKs, and I don't know, this is just really special to me, and it's just I think it's a great bourbon. What was it? What's the proof on it, Steve?
It
Probably
is.
120 range, maybe.
Yeah, it is 124.2.
Yeah.
124.2. This thing is
Never
9 years, 10 months, so almost 10 years old. And
Yeah.
it is OBSV, as he said. So yeah. All right.
You
On the
know-
note. Yeah.
We always did ours blind. I never wanted to know how old they were. I never wanted to know the recipe or anything. I just wanted my palate to taste what we've tasted. And even down at Knob Creek, I've passed up a 13-year-old for an 8. So like Jim says, it's not always the age. Not necessarily older is not always going to be better. But I think this is a perfect wheelhouse for 122. Doesn't drink like that. I think it drinks about 100 and, maybe a 105 or something, 108, but surely doesn't drink like it's 122. So it gets pretty scary too when you get into it. We actually sold this out.
Just
in,
drinking one after another.
Steve, you helped me sell this, and we sold this out in 2 days. Whole
Yes.
barrel.
Yeah. Yeah. We had an event. Yeah. It sold out immediately. Yeah.
Kind of pissed about that because I didn't have any for me to drink. Usually I'll pick a barrel and I'll get to drink it for about a month. A bottle here and a bottle there, but we sold out immediately, and I was disgruntled to say the least.
Jason allocated me for this pick. He allocated me 50 bottles for an event that we did, and we sold that out in 2 hours. Literally, it was on a Friday. I posted it, and I posted it at like 5 o'clock, and then my time, and then we started podcasting at 7 o'clock. Jason was there. We only had like 3 bottles left when we started podcasting at 7, and I broke in at the 5 minutes into that first show and said, "Oh, we're sold out." It literally sold out in 2 hours, the 50 bottles that I had to sell for our event. And then you sold the rest out in, a couple of days, 2 days total.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was crazy,
Right.
man. Yeah.
Evidently, Jim says he's got a story about 25 times I've been down there picking barrels. So
All right. Let's hear that. Jim, what do you got?
First, I love private barrel selections. I did every one. I was in Kentucky. I did everyone I could. And Jason and I know each other for years and years. And it's probably his, I'm guessing, 5th or 6th time on a private barrel selection. And each time, as he mentioned, he was OESK. And before the tasting selection, he called me, he says, "Jim, every time, the best thing you make is the OESK. Can we just get 5 or 6 barrels of OESK so we can select the best of the best and forget about all the other recipes?" And I said to Jason, let's try it one more time with all 10 recipes. And that was the first time it was a blind test. And the OASK came in number 6. But that's perception. When you think something's going to be good, it's going to be good. It's going to be the best. And that's with everybody. But that's when he started changing.
So yeah, he thought he was just an OESK fan, and it turns into number 6. Yeah.
Or it was a B mash bill and another yeast.
Well, what do you guys think of this one? Obviously, a couple quick notes coming in, talking about how good it is. Some mint on the finish, butterscotch on the nose.
A lot of spice on the nose, like the earlier samples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. They're really solid on the spice. Licorice,
butterscotch.
fennel.
Caramel, little oak.
Yeah.
Very well balanced, full taste, I'll tell you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What else do
Very
we
mellow.
get?
The palate is very mellow. It's got a nice finish. You
Yeah.
never get close to 124 proof.
Right.
I don't think.
Yeah. Like Jason said, this is one that'll get you in trouble. You just drink this all night long. You don't feel it till you stand up, and then you realize you got to sit back down.
Well, I
real quick.
want to tell one quick story before it gets too loud in here. You remember the class I took? Jim taught a class at the U of L Shelby campus. Was it 6 week, 7 week class? It's a pretty long class, and I don't do well in classroom settings. So I think I was probably aggravating the shit out of Jim. He kept telling me to pipe down.
No, I didn't.
But anyhow, we did at the last day we did 10 blind 10 blind samples, and he had everything from what Jack Daniels, Old Forester, you had them all in there. So everybody's quiet. I'm kind of, like I said, not doing well in a classroom setting. Kind of piped up and said, "I know number 5 is yours." And sure enough, it was a single. And this is a blind out of 10 different whiskeys, and
Wow.
number 5 was the single barrel. But at that point, I tasted so many of their single barrels. I mean, that was in my wheelhouse, So I thought that was pretty funny. It was a good.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. It's pick 1 out of 10 and get it right. I mean, that's more than luck. When you do something like that.
Yeah, that's a testament to the palate that we still know and respect today, for sure. All right. Well, I'd like to leave some time here for some questions with you guys. We've tasted through 8 different samples. A lot of them were great. A couple so, maybe one really bad. But the rest of them are okay. I don't that 80s stuff is to me not drinkable. I'm done with that. I tried 3 drinks and that's it. I'm not the rest of that's going down the drain. I can't do it. But I like the rest of them. But any questions? We've got Jim here and Jason. Any questions for these guys? Good opportunity. You can open up your mic, ask away. If you want to send it via the chat function, you can do that too. Any sort of questions? Great opportunity. Kentucky Bourbon. We got a current Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Famer, and Jason's a future Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Famer.
I don't know. I think my year was gone last year.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, that ended up. Yeah. Question about Creme of Kentucky, Jim. What's coming up with that?
It's hard to hear. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
What's going on with Creme of Kentucky? What's next?
Well, okay. We started out with a 13-year-old originally. Our contract was that we could not reveal the source, but it was a Barton. It was very, very nice whiskey, nice bourbon, and I've told my partners, we're going to run out one of these days, and as it's gotten there's other brands that are using those barrels now, quite a few others, and it's up to 14 years age now, and this year we're still trying to find some barrels, but my suggestion is that we introduce a younger bourbon in addition to the 14-year-old, if we can find the barrels for the 14-year-old. The one source we found that's willing to sell, say the price has gone up to $7,500 a barrel at a minimum of 200 barrels to be purchased at one time. We can't afford that. So unless we can find something else, it'll probably be the younger one by itself this year. It'll be about a 6-year-old bourbon. And that's more realistic. We can sustain that. But I will start, we're looking very well on our distillery project, and I think we'll be probably starting sometime this spring or very early summer with property and construction and all. And plans right now, once you get started, it's about 1.5 to 2 years to get it distillery running in your first distillation. So at the end of this year, I'm going to do, or the first of next year, do some contract distillation at another distillery. It's going to be Bardstown Bourbon Company, I think. And we'll be making bourbon with the process. They're willing to do everything. Let me come in, and it's not just mash bill and yeast, but it's every step of the process. And let me do it the way I'm used to doing it. So that will give us a 2-year jump start. And we'll make bourbon that's for Creme of Kentucky. We also have another brand that we will introduce this year, a rye. We're looking at a rye whiskey, something unique and different. And one of the things that's relatively new is coming around are blended straight whiskeys from various producers. And we're looking at a straight rye whiskey that's been produced in some in Kentucky, some in New York, Ohio, Indiana. It's either 4 or 5, maybe I think it's 4 states, maybe a 5th state, but it'd be a blend of multi-state straight rye whiskeys, something very unique. I'm hoping we'll have that out by this summer or very early fall. We'll have the Creme Kentucky. We'll probably bottle the next time this late May or early June, and we'll have that back in the market. But it will be a younger bourbon this time, unless we can find some barrels, reasonable barrels. But you get out to 14 years old, there's not much in the barrel. As it gets older, the price keeps jumping dramatically, and the cost of barrels these days is absolutely ridiculous. You fill a barrel distillery about $275, $300 in that neighborhood, and then a year later you can sell it for $1,500 to $1,500, and it continues to go up. But that's all a part of what's happened to the bourbon industry in recent years. It's just the dramatic growth, and the demand has been greater than the supply, and that's why all the distilleries, a lot of age statements on labels have been taken off, because we're all having to use younger whiskeys than was planned years ago. But we'll have a Creme of Kentucky out again in June. I can't tell you, but it'll probably be a 6-year-old. And if we can find a few barrels at a reasonable cost, we'll have the 14-year-old also. And then by midsummer, we hope to have the rye out, and maybe a High Plains rye. A High Plains bourbon in addition to the rye by sometime this fall.
Tell us a little bit about the High Plains bourbon. What exactly does that mean? High Plains bourbon?
Well, that's just a brand name. After I retired and I got involved with this our distillery project, 2 of the guys I worked with, Stephen Camisa, he was once legal counsel at Buffalo Trace. He was very involved in the marketing. And his partner, John Mowry, who lives out in California, he's in sales. They formed a company, Bedford and Grove, and they provide marketing, sales service, compliance services for small brands. They import the brands as well, and but they provide all these services. In fact, when we started growing, he had left Buffalo Trace just before we started going outside of Kentucky with the Roses Bourbon, and we brought Bedford and Grove on to help us grow the brand. And we had a 5-year contract, and when they left, we were in almost every state of the 48 states we were in. So when I started with them, we started talking about a distillery project. They had already purchased the Creme of Kentucky trademark, and it was the only former Stitzelweller brand that Buffalo Trace didn't own. So we have Cream of Kentucky, and they also, I can't tell you how they came up with this. They just came up with the name of another brand that was trademarked, High Plains. My concern there was, would there be an issue with High West? Two highs. I don't know that there will be, but there's a High Plains wine that's produced in California, and they have an agreement with them that that Bedford and Grove, now JW Rutledge Distillery, we can use High Plains for bourbon, but not wines, and the wine company can use the wine, but not a bourbon. So we feel comfortable that we'll be okay with the High Plains label, and it was just a name that they thought of prior to starting our project, the distillery.
Okay, cool. What else you got going on, Jim? Obviously that's big. And you think that you may be breaking ground soon?
I'm more confident now than we have. When we started, we have 4 partners, myself and Stephen, who's probably been in the business about 35, 36 years, 36 or 7 years, I guess. His partner, John Mallory, is another 35 years. The 3 of us started, then we brought on Will Conniff, who spent about 36 or 37 years with Southern Wine and Spirits before it became Southern Glazer. But he started with them when it was a small Florida distillery startup distributor. Now it's globally the largest distributor. So we've got just a broad base of, every one of us have different expertises. We have everything covered with the exception of finance, and we will hire, of course, a CFO and a controller once we get started. But the one thing we learned, we get some highs and then boom, the bottom would drop out a couple different times. And the one thing we learned, we had over 150 years when we started, over 160 years of experience right now. But one thing we didn't know was how to raise money. It's not easy, but I'm very confident right now. I think we'll have the money by mid to late spring. We already have property. We're vetting 3 properties right now. It's really narrowed down to 2 properties, and they're both absolutely excellent. One is like 216 acres. One is 274 acres. So we're planning on
big places.
growth.
Yeah.
We have we will start with an operation that uses a 36-inch beer still, which will produce about between 35 and 40,000 barrels a year. And then we've already been approached with several people about long range, large quantity contract distillation. So it could be that we'll double in capacity within the first 2 or 3 years. Like Bardstown Bourbon Company, they started with a 36-inch still. Before they ever distilled their first drop, they doubled their capacity. We're not, we're keeping it as a contingency. We can do it. Our distillery design is something unique. Most very often a new distillery, they'll build the distillery look like it's hopefully look like it's 100 years old. We're going a different direction. It's very modern. It's more like a California winery. It'll be architecture that's, I don't think it'll be seen anywhere else in Kentucky. It's very unique. I think it's a beautiful building, but something new, exciting. Will be as green, sustainable as possible, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, people ask me at my age, what are you doing getting into the starting a company at my age? And there's nothing I would love better than to be in a distillery every day. It's not work, it's fun. And I enjoy it, and I just hope it works out. We've had some peaks and some valleys, and I just hope this is not another peak that falls away. But I don't think so. I feel more confident than I have any time in the last 5 years that this is going to happen.
Good. I can't wait to try some whiskey you start distilling, Jim. So it's very exciting. Very exciting. Any other questions for Jim or Jason before we let these guys go?
Hey, Jim, I just wanted to ask, this is Lee in Virginia. I'm curious, one of the things that I love about the way Four Roses does things is kind of the transparency of all the different recipes. Is that something that you plan to carry forward with Cream of Kentucky? And then also, is your sweet spot kind of that high rye, that 30+% rye? Are you going to carry that forward with Cream of Kentucky when you start, putting out your own distillate?
I do like high rye. Stephen Camisa ran a survey about 3 or 4 years ago and asked what they would rather see, because for years people became a joke, especially if we had an event at Four Roses, because I always wanted to make a straight rye whiskey, and so people always ask, when are you going to have a straight rye? And I was always pushing for it. And I was told a couple times, when we think we need a rye, I will tell you. And I said, okay, when you tell me, we'll have it ready in about 7 years. But when we ran the survey, it was, and I'm not we whiskey, but there's nothing wrong with it. I just like the high rye. It's very different. And a survey came that it was almost 50-50 that they would rather see us start on a wheated bourbon or a rye. But we'll start with what I'm familiar with and understand and like, high rise, but we will have multiple, as you asked, we'll have multiple mash bills and yeast, and we will have, whether it's 8 or 10 or 6, we'll have multiple recipes for the same reason. And it's exciting. We'll be able to do things.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's froze up there. Well, gang, and as we wrap this up here, I appreciate everyone hanging in there with the technical difficulties. I am going to send out a link to the video tomorrow. Please check that email, because I'm also going to, as a thank you for you guys hanging in there with all these technical difficulties, I'll have a list of classes that I'll have available, and you guys can select one of those just kind of as a makeup for the technical problems. We still had a great night. I mean, we drank some great whiskey, went through 8 different, whiskeys. Jim was here, but just as a small, hey, sorry about that, because we pride ourselves on having the best events out there. I'm going to give you guys a free one, and there'll be a list, and you get to choose and pick whatever one. You don't have to do anything else. You just tell me which one you want to go to. I'll get you signed up for that. It's complimentary. So that'll be part of the email that'll go out tomorrow morning. Okay, gang? So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. Jim,
we apologize
you doing okay
for the
there?
problems, and we're having some issues right now.
Oh yeah, this is out of our control. Yeah. This we appreciate the time with you and you coming on. It means a lot. And I know you've got a long ride to get home. So Jim's got about a 90-minute drive now to get home. He wanted to be sure to be there at Bourbons Bistro again. So I want to give our thanks to Jim Rutledge for being with us tonight, for making it a special evening. I mean, it's a rare treat for him to do that, and he made a big commitment to be there. Again, these technical problems are out of his hands. It just happened. So we'll make up for that with another free event. But I appreciate Jim. Thank you to you. Thank you to Jason Brauner as well. So, cheers, gang.
Yeah, we enjoyed it, and Jason and I be glad to come back anytime, and again, make up for the problems we had this time. So
yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we apologize for the problems, but it's been fun.
It's been definitely fun. Yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jason.
Again, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
I'll stick around a little bit if anybody wants to talk. I'll be around.